Zach, so you're the CEO of Octave. I guess I'll start with, what is Octave? Give us the elevator pitch.
Best question first. Thanks for coming to visit us. I think about Octave in the simplest terms. It's the home for your ICP. And meaning, what do you sell? What do you do? Who is it for? What are the problems you solve? And of course, what we're trying to help teams do with that is take that much further. Like, you might sell payroll software, and you're gonna sell that very differently to a SaaS company versus a retailer. And so that's like when we start talking about the context engine, right? And like, we're really trying to help companies create systems and tools for like, how do they take their story and their strategy and get that into all the different channels and formats, right? Like, whether that be how they qualify accounts and segment them, or how they message to them, or even how they do discovery, right? Is all gonna kind of be informed by like, where do they fit in our kind of go-to-market matrix? So that's hopefully not too abstract, but like, that's how we think about like what we're trying to solve.
Yeah, and when we were chatting earlier, I kind of came in thinking that you guys were really just focused on email and outbound content, but it is kind of broader than that. Like, it's this context spine that then you can apply to different kind of use cases. Obviously, content and email generation was where you started, but you're kind of quickly getting into a lot of other interesting use cases. I guess, just for the folks at home, so to speak, what are some of the other things that people are using you guys for? Use cases are
so there? We started with email and outbound because you can think of like, that's where there's like the most pressure on the business to like, how do we transform all this thinking and strategy into something that like has some teeth and we can go like use in the market, right? And so there's like volume and velocity and urgency. So like, it's a good use case to start with, and we do a lot there and have some really cool stories around that. But you can think of, now a lot of customers are starting, further upstream, if you will, with us, with that original, like, have we even broken down our accounts and for territory planning and how we qualify into the way like the business really thinks about it? Like, hey, this is a, upstart fintech with high potential because we think this is the killer use case, and that use case is associated with X dollars, right? So there's like all of that kind of world of like, okay, they use Octave to be this kind of interpretation layer of like, hey, how can we, with very high fidelity and precision, like segment these accounts? Now you can think of, again, further downstream. So we can launch all types of campaigns. So not just outbound, you can think of customers like Grafana, they're using us in like growth and self-serve and more classical lifecycle marketing, right? How do we reach out to existing users with a more valuable, personalized, contextualized message? Hey, you're a developer at Ford using metrics logging. How do we talk to you versus a developer at Stripe using the same metrics logging product? We're helping in those type of campaigns as well. And then going further downstream, you can think of all of the context that might surround a rep in a conversation of like, what are the use cases we think you should bring up? What are the best reference customers and their stories and the proof points from those? So customers using up to serve up all those things, and that might be attached to a lead or an account in CRM, or into kind of like the last bucket is like into true agentic experiences. So a lot of companies we're working with, they're building agents that might be an agent to help CSMs with QBR prep. So they're taking lots of product telemetry and usage data and account history, and we want to, be positioning with this customer why we're still strategic. What's the next thing? So like, we want to pull in new product messaging and use cases and drive a narrative there. And so in those cases, we become like a tool, like we're a sub-agent to another agent that might own a broader experience. So that was a ton there.
Oh, that was fantastic. And then you guys just released MCP? Okay, so why now, I guess? What's the kind of, what prompted it now versus maybe in 6 months' time? Was there a particular tipping point?
It's a couple things. I think like, it sounds like cliche, but it's like what we always wanted to be. Like the dream was always to be this context layer. We didn't dream of, oh my God, we need to put an Octave screen in front of every sales and marketing person in the world. It's like, we thought there was this like, there's this like missing piece of infrastructure in your go-to-market stack for all this unstructured knowledge that's super important. So I think what's cool is the tech has finally progressed to a place where it's like MCP kind of starts to make this dream possible, where you have a surface like Claude that can interact with so many tools at once. And like, yeah, we know we're a part of that picture. We're not the entire picture. And so it just feels like the place we need to be to deliver on this vision. There's a dozen agents in Octave, and it's obvious every company is going to have thousands of agents. We're not going to sell you them all. So what we do want to be able to sell you is like your GitHub for context, that don't have to repeat the same context problem across every agent you build. Let them use this same shared brain of like your ICP go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, the GitHub for context,
Yeah.
I love that. And I guess just circling back though to emails and personalization, I've heard you nicknamed Professor Zach from someone I know.
Too kind.
Someone I know who took a course that you taught or something like that. If you could indulge us and tell us what makes a great personalized email.
So
You hold the secrets to this age-old question.
well,
And surely there is an answer, right?
the biggest problem is the perfect email is ask every person. You'll get a different answer.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I'll use one of my maybe cliche statements that I'm like most proud of is like I talk about all the time that it is personalization, not personalization. I think that is like, I truly believe in that. I think people can sometimes put an unbelievable amount of effort and artistry into digging into a layer about somebody's personal history to try and create relevance that I and my taste and my strategy and what we do, I don't think that's as important as digging deep on like the business context and like what does that company do and how does that person's like based on that type of company they're in, how does their role change and like speaking to them from that direction. So I think that's one thing when I'm thinking about a good personalized email is persona first, really thinking about that individual and the context of the company they're in. Some other like isms, I guess, is like, you don't want to give people a riddle. You want to be like precise and thought-provoking, but like, don't try and like wrap somebody in a pretzel with like, hey, have you thought about, well, like you're like gone. Like I can't even think about that. So I think, being very clear with what you're trying to test for, have a premise that they can react to or not, and not might be no response. That's okay. That's signal too. So I think that's an important component. If you're just growth hacking for a reply, that's good, but sometimes no reply is signal as well. One maybe tactical thing I think about in email and personalization is CTAs are really important. Can you set up CTAs that even if you don't get the meeting, you get intelligence? You could ask somebody, hey, got a few to chat, or you could be like, hey, I bet you use QuickBooks for this, am I right? And like, who knows if I'm gonna get a meeting, but sometimes people just like will respond to those messages more. No, we use Xero accounting, blah, blah. Oh, now I know, that account uses Xero, right? So like, I think there's like a lot of strategy that can be put into like the CTAs and like, really if you're trying to engage a conversation and get intelligence versus just this like hyper transactional focus on
The meeting.
I'll stop waxing poetic. I don't know if I've let down the professor moniker.
No, I love it. It's a fascinating field. I guess, in terms of the future of outbound and running a team, BDRs, and also just even more broadly the future of sales, when it comes to the stack, obviously there's Octave that you're building, and we've talked about it kind of whether it's consolidation of tools, but also companies trying to build these future-proof stacks and how do they fit in, and then there's words like MCP flying around. What is sort of, from your point of view, maybe the ideal stack for a mid-market team in the next 2 or 3 years? Like very tactical, tangible, you could pick either sales or marketing. I don't know which one you feel more comfortable speaking to, or both, but if they're trying to build like, the stack that's going to power their team, what are some things that you think are critical to the stack? And it doesn't have to be necessarily names of specific tools, but the types of tools, the types of things, the layers, like how does it all fit together? Put the new puzzle pieces together.
Is the CRM the data warehouse?
Yeah.
Or is the data warehouse the data warehouse? Snowflake is encroaching on a lot of things that I think you and I, if we had gone to a company 5 or 6 years ago, it'd be like, well, that's Salesforce's job. It's clearly just like the volume of data has eclipsed the latency and like what you can do with Salesforce as the database. So like, I think that's one layer that's very interesting. And I think, if we fast forward I forget the time frame, but
2, 3, 4, 5 years.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
Snowflake or Databricks or something else,
Yeah.
you know.
Or Salesforce. Maybe
Well, Salesforce, right?
they'll offer one.
Don't count them out. You're not going to get them out of the stack. So it's like you're going to have CRM as well.
Yeah.
I don't know which if those are, you know, cousins or one sits on top of the other, but you're going to have a data warehouse. You're going to have CRM too. Maybe Salesforce does a great job with owning some of the like orchestration and piping, but like there's clearly this need for like, okay, we have other tools across the business. We have other systems. We have other sources of data. We have product telemetry. We have AI agents. Like you're going to need orchestration, right? So like they're obviously, you know, like we're both good friends with Clay. Like they have a very strong play there. I think there are others too. You know, there's the emerging players. There's the Cargos of the world and many others. And of course, like N8N. You're going to need some orchestration layer. Now, I would argue you're going to need a context layer as well.
Yeah.
And I think I would argue like it's important to have that independent of the pipes. Like I think organizations are sometimes seeing it already of like if you bake the context into the orchestration, those things change at different rates, right? Like you don't want your pipes to change all the time. You kind of want them to stay put. And if you're trying to articulate how does our outbound campaign get executed on like the copy on the page at the end of the day with the pipes, you end up with a lot of brittleness. So I think there's a real good case to be made of keep context and orchestration separate. So I think you'll need that too. And then I guess at the top level, there will be some type of modern front end. I would argue within 2 to 3 years, like I don't think it's going to be the case that reps go into Salesforce. Like that, it seems crazy, right? Like I think the models are all these jobs that are forecasting, right? AI is going to do such an incredibly good job at looking at the data. We have all your calls. Like we need a person to go into an opportunity record and update any of these fields or give me a closest to pin number. That all just, in my mind, just starts to go away. So then you start to think of like, okay, what's the front end there? Is it a, you know, quote unquote legacy player? Is it an outreach, somebody that owns that front end? Is it a modern player? Is it a Unify? Or is it Claude? You know, like 3 years out, that could be very much the case, you know? So I don't know if that's, if we've described the ideal stack, but like the layers and like I think those components will, I believe, all be there.
I love it. And I guess also just adjacent, you mentioned a few of them, but there's a lot of buzzwords around, and I wanted to ask whether it's signal-based outbound or anything else. Is there a buzzword that you actually believe in, that you think should be more prevalent out there?
I would say maybe
Or
let's use
theme.
signal-based, I think is a good one where it's just like, I see it both ways of like, I think that is it's a really smart and thoughtful way of like framing a strategy and like set of tactics. Where I think it misses is like that there's these kind of like commodity defined signal. Hiring, funding, headcount growth in this department. Like, okay, if we all have those and you're just trying to like, everything I do as a company and what I sell is relevant to hiring and funding, like they just become meaningless, right? So I think like signal-based, I'm a big like, hell yeah. But like, you need to curate your own signals. Like you need to come up with like, hey, you know what's a really strong signal for our business is like when you're a mobile game developer and you launch your first app in Latin America, like we know 99 times out of 100, like we have a unique, you know, so it's like, I think that's where it's like, I would push companies of like great, there are signals out there that you can use them, but like you're not gonna get the same amount of alpha or results as like, what are those things that are completely unique to your business that you can go hunt for and curate and then build your engine and your stack to go look for those things and, you know, chase them down like crazy.
And then switching over to people, go-to-market engineering and sort of the future of sales roles a little bit. I know you've got some go-to-market engineers here that work here. Curious, what is your take on like for folks who want to join maybe earlier stage company or want to transition from traditional sales to the go-to-market engineer role? What traits do they need to have to be successful? What's a good go-to-market engineer look like? Any tips?
I think the go-to-market engineer role is like, it's super cool because it's this blend of technical proficiency and systems thinking, and the best ones meeting that with some of the go-to-market savviness. You know, like there is this interesting blend of, on one end, it's very technical, it is quant, and then the other side is very qual. How do our prospects in healthcare companies vibe with us versus marketing agencies, right? And like, you kind of need this person that is like really sensitive to both. Like, what do like durable, scalable, thoughtful systems building look like? Like, that's a really important, powerful skill set. And then on the other side, like, okay, when I like deploy this into market, like, is this gonna work, or did we just like build a bunch of shit that doesn't make sense because of these like human reasons and market reasons and all these like multivariant issues that are just like, the markets are really messy. So, you know, you need somebody that's like both, you know, systems thinker and like incredibly curious and thoughtful about the like, all right, this stuff touches the messy real world, you know? And the cool part is like, this is a new role where it's like, people haven't really had to straddle that. It's just been like, all right, well, the sales team is kind of this, they're the front line of the org that just, okay, we've enable them and give them collateral and knowledge, and then go march out on the field and tell us what happens. And now we're actually starting to bridge the systems and org and all these tentacles to what's happening in the field. And that's the exciting part of go-to-market engineering, is it has the possibility to really be this connective tissue.
Absolutely. I think it's also the question that a lot of people have is, you know, what's the best background for a go-to-market engineer? Is it like a former salesperson? Yep. Is it a former engineer? Is it a former marketer?
It's hard.
Questions.
I think it will probably end up being one of those perennial debates of the same thing as, you know, should SDRs report to sales or marketing? Yeah. Pick, flip a coin. I feel like go-to-market is the same. Should they come from a sales background or a technical background? Choose your church.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe last question is, you know, in 5 years' time, where will your company be? Where will Octave be?
If our dreams come true, I think we will be the GitHub for context. I think there's a really exciting opportunity. We want to be this layer that we think is incredibly important. It needs to be durable and flexible and work across every type of business in the world. But also, we view ourselves like we very much want to be built on top of. And so I think if we execute well, it would be something like that.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming to visit.
Super.
Hopefully that worked.
No, that was great. I think it worked.
I didn't preach too much, hopefully.
No, that was great.